Hi there, I thought I would do a short video about the making of 8 Years From Home, my previous video. Just hoping to help anybody else who was thinking about making a short movie and needed some help or inspiration to create their own. My rationale for making this movie. So I wanted to make a movie about my dad's wartime experiences for many years now. However, I've got no experience, little money, certainly no equipment, actors or jungle locations. So it wasn't going to be easy. Forget it, I said. Then years later I watched a movie called The Kid Stays in the Picture. It's a 1994 film produced by the great Robert Evans about his own life. Robert Evans is a Hollywood producer and he's probably the best producer Hollywood has ever made. The movie is made from all his personal and professional photos, and it's used with a technique called parallax pictures, or the parallax effect. Effectively, you're creating three-dimensional moving images from one-dimensional images or pictures. So that was the breakthrough I was waiting for, and I thought I could do it now. But all I had was my old iPad Air 1, although it was 128GB, and an app called LumaFusion, which I was already using to create my previous videos. The story. So I created a script about my dad's wartime experiences and read it through, and it came to about 2 hours long. So it needed drastic editing. So I thought, keep it simple or it's going to be too big and too long, both as a project and for the person watching it. So I created the long script, and then I began to clean it up, generalize it and simplify it down to a set of 9 scenes. So the 9 scenes were basic training, ship sinking by U-boat, train journey and arrival, the Japanese attack in Rangoon, prisoner of wartime, escape and recuperation, the Infal Kohima battle, the battle to take Rangoon, the bomb, and afterwards and summary. The imagery. Finding these images to parallax was difficult and took a long time. The images obviously have to be relevant to the story, but important as well, they had to have a background, a midground and a foreground to make the parallax effect work adequately. I did use some images with a foreground and a background which were more relevant, but that was the criteria for the images, so it took quite a long time to find those. To help create the images necessary, I uploaded an iOS app called Photoshop Mix, and also bought myself an iPad pen called the Jot Pro. It's a fantastic pen, and I wouldn't have been able to do all the work without it really. I took the image and traced out the foreground and midground, creating PNG files, and then masked out and filled the background. Additionally, I had to decide which of these 3 layers had the focus. So then I had to partially blur the other images to create some depth of field to enhance the 3D image further. I then put all the 3 layers into LumaFusion and then panned and zoomed each image frame by frame by hand to create the effect of a 3D movie. Each image took about 4 to 5 hours each. That included tracing, filling, enhancing and placing into LumaFusion and then creating the 3D movement. I used about 32 images in the movie, so it took me about 120 hours to create the whole set for the movie. The rest of the images were stills, and I added pans and zooms to make the images look more alive. Music and sound. All my images were taken from the YouTube free music library. and additionally 1 track from a site called a Free Music Archive. That also took many hours of listening and researching to find the right music and the mood for my short movie. Then sound effects. Most of the sound effects again were taken from free sites, too numerous to mention, and I ended up with over 60 sound files to manage and mix into the movie to create some degree of realism to what are soundless pictures. Together with music, sounds, parallax pictures and my narration, I was able to tell my dad's story and create something like a movie. The narration. After some sound testing with cheap microphones, I eventually bought myself a Samson Meteor USB microphone to record my narration. Then after plenty of research, I eventually went low-tech and just put a blanket over my head to record the narration to provide some good sound dampening and recording with little or no echo. But it works, believe me. If you've never done it, then talking naturally into a microphone is not as easy as it sounds, literally. Additionally, it's hard to keep hearing your voice over and over again when editing, but I've grown accustomed to it. Editing, the hard part. Well, I think the editing at times nearly killed me. I was limited with LumaFusion to have only 3 video channels and 3 audio channels. At times I did need 4 video channels and 6 audio channels. I got around this by merging 2 LumaFusions into one. I first created and edited images and the soundtrack onto those images to make a video, then created another video with 2 layers of sounds into that track. Then I loaded this back into LumaFusion project to effectively create 8 channels. I hope that makes sense. Everything had to be timed to link in with the music, narration and the images to all come together. Each scene was edited and created separately, and the 9 scenes eventually came together as a new project to complete the video. Maps. It would have been impossible to create the massive battle scenes of the Japanese Rangoon attack and the Imphal Kohima battle, so instead I used maps to explain the situation and the battle scene. I used an iOS map called Procreate and recorded the many maps in real time and marked out the movements of the Japanese and British troops with my Jot Pro pen, and then imported these live map drawings into LumaFusion to create live looking maps. They weren't just sat there, there was things happening on them too. So to summarise, I hope you enjoyed this short video about how I made 8 Years from Home. I hope it inspires other people to do the same. I just don't think there's enough told about the Burma War and what happened. It's certainly never supported by Hollywood or even the UK. It's still the forgotten war. And the other thing to say is, you know, this may be an amazing story, which I think it is, but the more I've read books about other people's times in the war, not just Burma, everywhere else, there isn't really one story that is amazing. They're all amazing. The things that we found out about my father-in-law are amazing. The things he did, which he never talked about, are amazing. So, you know, these short movies can be made. They take a lot of time. It's gone probably over 130 hours of work into this, but I think it's done because he's my father and I wanted to tell his story. So I hope it gets plenty of views and I hope people comment. And if you haven't seen the movie, jump back one and watch it. And for anybody who's wanting to create parallax movies by hand, I certainly did it. I became not the expert, but I became good at it. So thanks for watching.